My dear friend, stop everything you are doing and listen to this right now, because this moment right here, it's not an accident. This is not just another message. This is a divine interruption. Heaven itself has stepped into your timeline to wake something inside you that the world tried to bury. While scientists search the skies and scholars dig through ruins for answers, the greatest mystery is not written in books or buried under sand. It's you. You, the living riddle that logic can't solve. You, the miracle, walking on 2 feet that no system can predict or contain. They mocked your fall. They pointed fingers. They whispered that you were finished. But what they didn't understand is that God was not punishing you. He was positioning you. Every failure became foundation. Every tear watered your destiny. And now the same ground where you were broken will become the stage of your resurrection. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to disrupt. That's why they can't stop studying you. Because when you rise, their illusions fall. This is not motivation. This is revelation. Heaven is declaring that your comeback is not optional, it's ordained. So open your spirit, chosen one. The investigation has started and your rise begins. Now, before we dive deeper into this revelation, welcome to this space of faith and fire. To everyone who's been here, whether through a word, a share, or quiet support, thank you. Your faith keeps this flame alive in the wilderness. If this message stirs something in your spirit, drop 777 inches the comments below. It's more than a number. It's a declaration of divine completion and awakening. Stay until the end, chosen one. Let's begin. Beloved, chosen ones. Now listen closely, because what I'm about to share with you isn't fantasy and it isn't magic. It's truth. The kind of truth that shakes foundations, breaks patterns, and calls your spirit to attention. We're not here for fairy tales or tricks of the mind. We're going straight into the heart of who you are. The living mystery the world has spent centuries trying to decode. You see, governments have investigated miracles. Scientists have dissected the stars. Philosophers have drowned in their own logic, but none of them have been able to explain you. And that's what makes you dangerous to the systems that rely on predictability, because you carry something they can't measure, can't replicate, and can't steal. These aren't theories, they're forces. Real divine forces that ripple through you every time you step into a room, speak truth, or rise again after being torn down. The world senses it even when it can't define it. That's why they whisper. That's why they watch. Because you, child of God, are the evidence that heaven still moves through human skin. In a moment, we'll dive into what I call the 14 manifestations, realms of power that dwell within you. The presence that shifts the atmosphere. The memory that remembers what was never taught. The eyes that see what's hidden. The resilience that defies reason. The influence you never asked for. The authority no man can grant or remove. The timeless rhythm you walk in, the gaze that convicts, the incorruptible soul, the intuition that outruns logic, the order you see in chaos, the healing that flows through your pain, the strength born in solitude, and the peace that makes you untouchable. Each one of these is a revelation waiting to be uncovered. Each one is proof that your existence isn't random, it's divine design. And tonight that design begins to unfold. Chosen ones. Now listen to me carefully. This is where it begins. Power number one. The first gift they can't categorize, can't measure, and can't control: the power of your presence. Some people spend their entire lives trying to be seen. They raise their voices, change their clothes, exaggerate their personalities, and still no one truly notices them. But you, when you walk into a room, everything shifts. Conversations hesitate, laughter softens, energy rearranges itself. Even without saying a word, you are felt, because your presence doesn't just enter a room, it alters it. And no, that's not charisma or charm. That's frequency. It's the divine vibration of your spirit, the spiritual fingerprint that heaven placed within you. Before you took your first breath, it's the invisible proof that God still walks through human vessels. You are living evidence of His presence on earth, and every environment recognizes it even when people can't explain it. That's why they react. Some lean in, pulled closer by something they can't name. Others shrink back, uneasy, unsettled. It's not random, it's revelation. Your presence reveals. It exposes what's real and unmasks what's fake. When light enters a room, darkness doesn't debate, it simply shifts. And you are that light. You don't intimidate people intentionally, but truth always shakes what pretends to be stable. Your energy is a mirror. For the honest, you bring peace. For the deceitful, you bring discomfort. That's why wherever you go, atmospheres are never neutral again. Your presence tests the spiritual temperature of the room. You've probably noticed this without knowing why. You walk into a workplace, a meeting, even a family gathering, and suddenly something changes. People glance at you. Tension rises. Conversations stop. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your spirit speaks before your mouth does. Heaven announces you before your voice ever does. You were never designed to blend in. You were made to shift the atmosphere, to reveal that no space is truly neutral when divine authority walks in. The world teaches that environments control people, but the Spirit of God teaches that His children carry dominion. You don't adapt to the room. The room adjusts to you. Don't apologize for that. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. When people feel uneasy in your presence, it's not your problem, it's their conviction. The light in you exposes the darkness they've learned to live with. You can't dim yourself just to protect their comfort. The moment you do, you betray the very calling God placed on your life. You've been wondering why certain people suddenly pulled away, why relationships grew distant, or why you never quite fit into circles that once accepted you. It's because your energy outgrew their illusion. When you walk in alignment with truth, everything false must eventually fall away. You don't have to argue, explain, or defend yourself. Your energy will do the talking. See, your presence isn't loud, but it's luminous. It exposes false peace and stirs hidden emotion. You felt it too. The heaviness when you step into a place filled with tension or deceit. The air feels thick. The energy presses against you. That's not imagination, that's spiritual awareness. You're reading the room on a level most people can't perceive. It's not a burden, it's discernment. God wired your soul with sensitivity to spiritual shifts because you are meant to stand where balance has been broken. You carry peace, and peace doesn't fit easily in chaos. But understand, this chaos recognizes you. It studies you. It fears you. That's why they investigate you. Because your very existence disrupts systems built on control, deceit, and fear. People can't explain you because your presence carries more truth than their words. They see you standing there quietly, but spiritually the ground is moving. You are not reacting, you are realigning. Every room you enter is a battlefield between authenticity and illusion, and your stillness speaks like thunder. That's why silence is your weapon. You don't have to shout to command attention. Your peace makes more noise than their pride. The calm inside you unsettles everything chaotic around you. Some call it confidence, some call it mystery, but heaven calls it anointing. It's not performance, it's presence. And listen, this presence is not something you turn on when you want to impress people. It's not charisma. You can practice its essence. It's encoded into your spiritual DNA. You can't hide it even when you try. Go to another city, another job, another crowd, it doesn't matter. The moment you walk in, the air knows you're there. Even strangers sense it. That's why doors open unexpectedly, and why some people can't explain why they feel peace when you're near. Your presence carries a field, an unseen force of divine frequency. It's protection and revelation at the same time. It shields you from deception while unveiling truth all around you. Lies lose power in your vicinity. Gossip fades, slander dies quickly because authenticity always outlasts accusation. You are not intimidating, you are illuminating. The reason people study you, question you, or even envy you is because your light breaks the illusion of control. The moment you appear, hierarchy collapses, false confidence crumbles, and the room remembers what truth feels like. Some will thank you for it. They'll tell you something feels right when you're here. Others will avoid you because to be near you means to confront themselves. Don't chase either reaction. Your mission is not to be liked, it's to be light. The sun doesn't apologize for shining, it simply rises. Now hear me. Your presence is prophetic. It announces to every dark power that change has arrived. When you walk into a place, heaven declares, this ground is now under new management. That's why storms calm when you pray. That's why tension lifts when you worship. You don't bring peace. You are peace. And peace carries authority. So when you feel drained after being around people, understand what's happening. The energy inside you is cleansing the atmosphere. You are absorbing chaos and replacing it with calm. That's why God calls you to rest, not because you're weak, but because restoration refuels your anointing. Every place you enter becomes a sanctuary. Once you stand in it long enough, let's make this clear. Your first power is not what you do, it's who you are. The anointing is not in your performance, it's in your presence. That's why you don't need to fight for influence. When you are aligned with truth, influence happens naturally. People feel you before they understand you. They trust you before they can explain why. That's the mystery they can't decode. You're living proof that divine power can wear human skin. The reason they can't copy you is because heaven doesn't mass produce souls. You were handcrafted to carry a vibration that can't be stolen. They can imitate your style, your speech, even your smile, but they can't imitate your frequency. And so when you enter the next season of your life, do not walk in timidly, walk in aware. The atmosphere is already adjusting to your arrival. You don't have to announce yourself, the spirit inside you has already done that. When you cross a threshold, heaven whispers, the one I sent has arrived. Your power is not noise, it's stillness that shakes foundations. It's not arrogance, it's authority wrapped in humility. It's not about control, it's about clarity. And when clarity enters, confusion has no choice but to bow. So from this moment forward, walk boldly in the awareness of who you are. Don't let fear convince you to shrink, and don't let pride convince you to perform. You are enough simply by standing in your truth. When you walk into a room, light follows you, peace surrounds you, and heaven recognizes you. That's why they whisper. That's why they study, because what you carry can't be explained, only experienced. Your presence shifts the air, rearranges the atmosphere, and reminds the world that God still moves through chosen vessels. So keep walking, child of God. You are the evidence. You are the mystery. And wherever you go, the room will never be the same again. O chosen ones. The second power they can't define yet, can't deny the memory that isn't yours but still leads you. Have you ever moved through life with a knowing that you couldn't explain? You didn't learn it, no one told you yet. Something inside whispered, this is the way. You acted before logic could catch up, and somehow the outcome was perfect. That's not luck. That's not intuition. That's remembrance, divine memory written in your soul before time began. You see, most people learn by experience, by falling and getting back up, but you walk with an ancient awareness as though you're following instructions scripted in eternity. You feel things before they happen. You sense danger without proof. You make choices that others question, yet they always lead to the right place. You are not guessing, you're remembering what heaven already revealed to your spirit. This isn't mental instinct, it's spiritual inheritance. You were born with a divine archive inside you, a library of wisdom passed through generations of faith encoded in the fabric of your soul. You move, like someone guided by maps invisible to the human eye. That's why systems can't contain you. IQ can't explain you. Education can't measure you. Because what you carry isn't knowledge, it's revelation. And that's what makes the world uncomfortable. They rely on data. You rely on direction. They demand evidence. You follow peace. They call it risk. You call it remembering. This gift confuses those who can't hear what you hear. They think you act too soon, too fast, or too boldly. But timing obeys you because you're walking in rhythm with eternity. That still small voice inside you is not your imagination. It's divine recall. The echo of God's voice from before your birth, reminding you of who you are and where you're meant to go. When you feel led to move, to speak, to wait, that's heaven whispering through memory. You are retracing steps your spirit already took in another realm. That's why certain places, people, or moments feel familiar. You've seen them in divine rehearsal long before they appeared in reality. You were known before you were born. Scripture says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." That means God didn't just create you. He remembered you into existence. And that memory lives within you. When others see coincidence, you see confirmation. When they call it intuition, heaven calls it alignment. This is why you often feel misunderstood. You sense what others ignore. You make choices that don't make sense to those living by sight, not by spirit. But remember, those who live by evidence will always question those who walk by revelation. You are not careless, you're connected. You don't predict, you perceive. Your spirit carries a map older than your mind. You're not discovering life, you're remembering destiny. Each time your heart says, "I've been here before," it's because heaven already led you through it in silence. That's why you can recognize truth instantly. Some truths don't need to be learned, they only need to be remembered. You've probably noticed how often people come to you for advice, not because you've lived their life, but because your words carry clarity. They feel something ancient in your counsel. That's not experience, it's spiritual recall. You remind others of what their souls already know but forgot how to hear. You awaken memory in others just by speaking truth with conviction. But understand this, the more you remember, the heavier the responsibility. Revelation demands obedience. When heaven reminds you of something, you can't pretend you don't know. That's why your peace leaves when you ignore that voice. Because remembrance is not meant to comfort, it's meant to command. When you follow that knowing, doors open. When you resist it, everything stalls. That's how you know the voice is real. It doesn't flatter you, it guides you. It leads you through silence, through storms, through moments where logic fails. But every time you trust it, it proves itself right. Because heaven never forgets what it once spoke over you. You are living proof that knowledge doesn't just come from books or mentors, it comes from the eternal. The world calls it intuition. Science calls it instinct. But what you carry is divine recollection, something unteachable, untransferable, and unstoppable. This is why you often move ahead of your time. You speak truths that others deny until life itself proves you right. You see patterns before they appear, sense endings before they unfold, and walk into opportunities just as they open. You don't chase timing, timing chases you. And that's what terrifies the system. Because they can't study this power, they can't extract it, copy it, or sell it. You operate beyond their formulas. You make decisions without data, yet still hit the target. That's what happens when your soul remembers what your mind forgot. Sometimes this gift isolates you. People think you're strange, unpredictable, or proud. They don't realize that silence is your classroom and solitude is your teacher. Because divine memory speaks loudest in quiet places. When you're still, you can hear echoes of instructions written in eternity. And once you've heard them, you can't unhear them. So trust that knowing when your spirit says not yet wait, when it says go move, That's not fear or impulse, it's heaven syncing you to divine timing. Every whisper you obey keeps you one step ahead of destruction and one step closer to destiny. And when they ask you how you knew, don't apologize. Just tell them, I remembered, because that's the truth. You didn't guess, you didn't gamble, you followed the memory of your spirit, the same voice that spoke before the foundation of the world. Never doubt it again. That memory inside you is sacred. It will protect you, direct you, and reveal what eyes can't see. The more you trust it, the more it grows. Because remembrance, like faith, sharpens through obedience. You are not here learning life from scratch. You are here reawakening what God already placed within you. You don't need to see the whole path. You only need to follow what you already know deep within. So keep walking guided by what feels like memory but is really divine instruction. The steps are already written. The only question is, will you remember in time to follow them? Now we come to number 3. The third power that separates you from the crowd. The power that makes people uneasy, not because you judge them, but because you see them. It's not about eyesight, it's about insight. You see patterns, others hide motives behind masks and truth buried under performance. You don't just hear words, you feel them. Lies don't just sound wrong, they vibrate wrong. The tone shifts, the timing stumbles, and something inside you says, that's not true. That's discernment. You connect dots, others scatter on purpose. While the world moves in confusion, you see the thread behind the chaos, the shape inside the smoke. That's why they can't fool you. This isn't suspicion, it's clarity. You read energy more than language. You sense the gap between what's said and what's meant. You see through tone, silence, and body language. That ability makes people nervous. They sense you can see beyond what they present. Even when you say nothing, your eyes speak. They recognize deception, pain, and pretense, and without trying, you make people confront themselves. You don't chase truth, it reveals itself to you. You're aligned with it. Where others require evidence, you need presence. You don't analyze. You discern. You don't rely on logic, you move through light. You don't wait for proof because you already feel the pattern forming. That's what confuses people who live by process. You skip their steps because you live by revelation. And that's why some fear you, because they can't hide their practiced charm, their polite masks, their well-crafted lies. They all tremble in the presence of real sight. You see motives before words, endings before beginnings, and danger before it strikes. That's why your silence can feel heavier than another person's speech. You're not paranoid. You're perceptive. You don't accuse, you observe. You don't condemn. You comprehend. You can see the wound under the anger, the fear under the pride, the manipulation under the smile. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you cautious. It's not distrust, it's discernment. You've been betrayed enough to know that darkness doesn't always wear black. Sometimes it wears a grin. Every betrayal became a lesson sharpening your eyes. Every disappointment trained your perception. You learned the frequencies of falsehood, the rhythm of deceit, the shadow of manipulation. Now, even before someone speaks, you can feel their intention. You no longer need words to know truth. You sense it? The world doesn't understand that. They believe truth must be proven, documented, dissected. But your spirit doesn't need evidence, it knows essence. That's why your understanding feels unfair to others. While they're still collecting facts, you've already seen the outcome. Your vision bypasses process because it comes from alignment, not analysis. And this alignment makes you a threat to systems built on illusion. You see through manipulation in politics, in religion, in culture. You can feel the design behind the disorder. That's why they dismiss you as too intense or too deep, because they can't afford for you to wake others up. You see too clearly, too early. You catch lies while they're still forming. But with that sight comes responsibility. You weren't given vision to expose. You were given it to protect. God didn't make you a critic. He made you a guardian of truth. Discernment isn't meant to shame. It's meant to guide. You don't tear down. You illuminate. You don't reveal people's weakness to the world. You pray for their healing in private. That's what keeps your gift holy. You must learn when to speak and when to stay silent, because not everyone can handle what you see. Some are not ready for revelation. If you expose too soon, they'll turn on you to protect their illusion. But if you wait, truth will confirm itself in time. Your task is to discern without destroying, to observe without obsession, to love even when you see clearly. Discernment is not for control, it's for compassion. You see the pattern, but you also see the pain behind it. You understand the mask, but you still recognize the person. You can spot a lie and still love the liar. That balance, that mercy is what proves you walk in divine alignment. You can't unsee once your eyes are opened. That's why discernment often feels lonely. People misunderstand your distance. They call you guarded, detached, even prideful. But it's not pride, it's protection. You've learned that peace costs awareness. Once you know, you can't pretend not to. Once you've seen, you can't go back to blindness. And yet this awareness is also freedom. You no longer waste time where truth is absent. You no longer invest in people who only wear sincerity. You stop chasing approval and start trusting discernment. You no longer get trapped in cycles of confusion because you see the pattern before it repeats. Your sight is your shield. You may not see every detail, but you always sense direction. That's how you've survived. Attacks meant to destroy you, you recognize the spirit behind them before they hit. You may not have known the plan, but you felt the vibration of betrayal coming. That's divine foresight. That's heaven warning you through wisdom. You are not a detective. You are a discerner. The difference is spirit. A detective looks for evidence. A discerner recognizes essence. One searches with eyes, the other sees with spirit. You walk in rooms and instantly know who's genuine and who's pretending. You can tell who's wounded, who's wise, who's weary, and who's wearing a mask. That's why you're misunderstood. Some think you're distant. Others say you're hard to approach. But truth doesn't mingle easily with falsehood. People sense that if they stay near you too long, their masks will start to melt. And they're right, because light doesn't expose to humiliate, it exposes to heal. Your discernment doesn't just protect you, it changes environments. When you walk into a space, deception begins to crumble. Confusion begins to clear. The energy shifts toward truth because the spirit in you demands alignment. You don't have to preach. Your presence speaks revelation. You don't have to confront. Your calm conviction does the work. That's the secret. Your silence carries authority. It's not loud, but it's heavy. Truth doesn't need volume, it needs presence. And you carry that presence. When you look at someone, they feel seen, not judged, but known. That's why some open up to you without understanding why. You make truth feel safe again. But remember, seeing patterns doesn't make you flawless. It makes you accountable. The more you see, the more gently you must walk. Vision without humility becomes arrogance. You weren't given this sight to rule. You were given it to serve. Use it to guide, not to gossip. To heal, not to humiliate. Because ultimately, discernment is love in focus. It's God sharing his eyes with you, showing you what others can't see so you can help them find their way. You are not meant to carry the weight of what you see alone. You're meant to bring it back to the one who gave it. So when people ask, how did you know? You don't have to explain. You just smile and say, I saw the pattern. Because what you see is not human sight, it's divine perception. You are heaven's observer reading truth hidden in plain sight. And that's the third power, the eyes that see through illusion, the gift that no one can imitate or disarm, the ability to walk in clarity while the world hides in disguise. The more you honor it, the sharper it becomes. You were born to perceive, to protect, and to reveal truth where deception hides. That's why they study you. That's why they whisper. Because the moment you enter the room, the lies begin to unravel. You don't even have to speak. The truth in you speaks for itself. And once truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. Chosen ones. Next, your fourth power is the one that leaves the world in disbelief. It's the power of resilience beyond logic. By every standard, you shouldn't be standing here. After the betrayal, the loss, the rejection, you should have crumbled. But instead of being buried, you were planted. Instead of fading, you caught fire. The same ground that tried to swallow you became the platform where you now rise. You don't just survive, you transform. Pain doesn't destroy you, it remakes you. Every heartbreak forged new strength. Every disappointment built endurance. You took the same bricks thrown to bury you and turned them into the foundation of your next chapter. People see your smile now and call it strength, but it's more than that. It's rebirth. You are not a survivor patched together. You are creation refined by fire. Most people heal by hiding. You heal by transforming. They escape their wounds. You extract wisdom from them. You don't run from pain, you redeem it. You understand now that everything meant to harm you was really molding you. Every scar you carry is proof that even when broken, you still built. And that's what they can't comprehend. Because logic says broken things stay broken. But grace says broken things still glow. They expected you to crawl, instead you fly. They waited for your collapse. Instead you came back crowned. What they don't realize is that you didn't rise on your own. You rose because God refused to let you stay down. Your strength isn't man-made, it's divine. You didn't rebuild yourself by force, you surrendered and let heaven rebuild you. The fire that should have consumed you became your forge. You were not destroyed by the storm, you were defined by it. What you thought was the end was actually an unveiling of what had been unshakable all along. You are stronger not because you avoided pain, but because you allowed it to teach you. Betrayal trained your discernment. Loss deepened your compassion. Delay refined your patience. Every season of breaking was building you into someone unbreakable. You are the living proof that some souls grow sharper in darkness. That's why people can't understand you. They see the calm in your eyes and assume you never struggled, but they don't know what it costs to carry peace after chaos. They see your confidence but can't trace it to the nights you cried and prayed instead of quitting. You carry a quiet authority because you earned it in silence. You've learned that strength doesn't mean never falling, it means rising different. You no longer return as who you were, you return as who the pain shaped you to be. You don't waste time mourning what broke. You thank God for what it revealed. Every ending became an education. Every wound became a weapon. You've stopped trying to prove your worth. You no longer chase people who walked away or beg for doors that closed. You understand now that rejection was protection, that loss was redirection. What left wasn't meant to hold your next level. You no longer look back with bitterness, you look back with clarity. Because now you see the pattern. Everything that fell apart was falling into place. Your resilience confuses those who still measure strength by success. They can't comprehend peace after pain, joy after betrayal, faith after failure. But you live as proof that God rebuilds differently. When He restores, He doesn't return you to what you were, He elevates you into what you were meant to be. You carry that holy contradiction, soft but strong, scarred but shining, wounded but wise. The same pain that could have poisoned you became your oil. The same storm that tried to drown you washed away what didn't belong. You are the product of divine paradox, broken enough to be humble, healed enough to be powerful. Every time life tried to end you, heaven rewrote your story. You've been refined by pressure, not crushed by it. What was meant to silence you gave you a voice. What was meant to destroy you deepened your dependence on God. Now, when people ask how you're still standing, you just smile, because they'll never understand that your foundation isn't built on circumstances. It's built on covenant. And you know what? The fire wasn't meant to burn you. It was meant to reveal you. Gold only shines when refined, and your soul shines because it's been through the furnace. That's why no matter how many times life tries to bury you, you rise with something new peace, new focus, new authority. You've learned that storms don't take away your power. They activate it. You no longer panic when things fall apart, because you've seen what happens when they do. You've seen beauty bloom from ashes. You've seen endings turn into rebirths. You've seen how God uses what broke you to bless you. You've seen that resurrection is not a story, it's a cycle, and you are living in it. You no longer fear breaking, because you know breaking is the birthplace of becoming. You no longer fear pain, because you've learned that grace grows best in the dark. Every tear that fell watered the garden of your next miracle. Every loss prepared room for greater gain. You are not the same person who entered the fire. You are clearer, lighter, and more powerful. You don't return seeking revenge. You return walking in revelation. You no longer fight to prove you're strong. You simply live as someone unshakable. Your presence alone testifies that God still raises what the world writes off. That's why your resilience disturbs some and inspires others. To those still trapped in bitterness, your peace looks impossible. To those still living in fear, your calm looks supernatural. But that's what divine strength is. It doesn't make sense. It's not born of ego, but of endurance. It's the quiet courage to walk forward when everything around you says quit. So don't downplay it. Don't hide the evidence of your endurance. Your story isn't one of survival, it's one of transformation. You didn't escape the fire. You became it. You burn with purpose now. You shine with wisdom. You carry the heat of every season that tried to end you. This is your fourth power. The strength that shouldn't exist. The strength that can't be explained, imitated, or broken. The strength that rises from ruin, grows through grief, and laughs in the face of defeat. The strength that turns pain into prophecy and wounds into wisdom. You are not still standing despite the storm, you are standing because of it. You are what the storm left behind when it failed. Proof that grace is stronger than gravity. Proof that divine design never collapses. Proof that faith can't be buried. And now, when they ask how you survived, you can say it with peace in your voice. I didn't just survive, I became. My dear friends, now we reach number 5, the fifth power that both inspires and unsettles. It is the power of effortless influence. You don't persuade with speeches. You don't demand attention. You don't need a platform or a crowd. Yet the moment you walk into a room, the air shifts. Conversation change direction. People adjust their tone. Plans quietly bend around your presence. That is influence without trying authority, that flows from alignment, not ambition. Most people chase power. They study persuasion, practice, control, rehearse, charisma. But your influence doesn't come from performance, it comes from consistency. It's born from how you live. When no one is watching, you don't force integrity, you are integrity. You choose honesty over convenience, peace over chaos, truth over comfort. And that's what gives your voice weight even in silence. You don't speak to impress, you live to express the truth within you. When you choose to walk away from toxic circles, people notice. When you refuse to compromise your values, it stirs something in them. Conviction, reflection, even discomfort. You don't control anyone, But your example exposes everything unstable in them because your presence is like light. It doesn't argue with darkness. It simply makes it impossible to hide. That's why some people admire you and others avoid you. To those who love truth, your presence feels like freedom. To those who cling to illusion, it feels like threat. You don't even have to say a word. Just your calm, your clarity, your standards. They make people confront the parts of themselves they've ignored. You remind them of who they could be if they stop pretending. Your influence is not about domination, it's about demonstration. You don't manipulate, you model. You don't convince, you convict. And that's what terrifies systems built on control. They can't manage someone who doesn't need validation. They can't outshine someone who doesn't compete. They can't intimidate someone who refuses to compromise. Your refusal to bend becomes the sermon. They can't silence. When you quietly choose the narrow path, others start questioning the wide one. When you walk away from drama, chaos begins to lose its audience. When you choose character over comfort, you awaken courage in others. That's how real influence works. It doesn't demand attention, it demands reflection. See, the world teaches that influence is about visibility, more followers, more noise, more dominance. But heaven defines influence by impact. It's not how many people see you, it's how many are changed by you. Your life preaches even when your lips don't move. You don't have to announce your values. They echo through your actions. People feel your integrity before they hear your words. This kind of influence can't be faked. It can't be bought. It's not the result of strategy, it's the overflow of authenticity. You live what others only quote. You embody what others admire from afar. That's why your presence doesn't just attract, it transforms. And yes, that transformation makes people uncomfortable. Because when you show up as truth, everything false has to reveal itself. When you hold peace, chaos can't stay loud. When you stand firm, compromise begins to tremble. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. When a person is truly aligned with purpose, the world around them has to adjust. You've probably noticed how people seek your opinion, even when you didn't volunteer it. They ask for your thoughts, not because you're the loudest, but because your perspective carries substance. They sense that you don't speak from ego, you speak from experience, from discernment, from conviction. They can argue with others, but they can't argue with your authenticity. That's the quiet power of influence born from truth. Your presence demands integrity. It's not intentional, it's instinctive. You live in such a way that mediocrity feels uneasy near you. People who cut corners can't breathe easily around you. Those who manipulate or gossip instinctively lower their voices when you walk in. They don't even know why. It's because your energy holds a standard. And standards convict. But remember, this influence is not about control. It's about calling. You were never sent to dominate others. You were sent to awaken them. You carry a light that reveals what's hidden, but light also invites growth. Your role is not to shame the darkness. It's to show that another way exists. That's why your influence endures, because it's not tied to your image. It's tied to your integrity. You could lose your platform, your position, your possessions, and still shift atmospheres. Because real influence doesn't come from what's on you, it flows from what's in you. The world tries to imitate this, but imitation always collapses under pressure. Manufactured influence fades when applause stops. But your influence deepens in silence. It expands in private. It grows in unseen places because it's rooted in something eternal. You don't need to perform. You just need to stay aligned. Every choice you make either strengthens or weakens your influence. When you keep your word, you build credibility. When you forgive instead of retaliating, you build respect. When you stay faithful in seasons of waiting, you build authority. Over time, your consistency becomes your crown. People may not praise you, but they remember you. You become the voice that echoes in their conscience long after you've left the room. And that's what shakes them. The realization that your influence lingers. It follows them into their decisions. It interrupts their compromises. It whispers in their quiet moments. That's not manipulation, that's moral gravity. Truth has a pull that can't be ignored. To some, your influence feels like liberation. They see your example and realize they can live free too. To others, it feels like confrontation. They see your integrity and feel exposed in their hypocrisy. Either way, you shift the atmosphere without saying a word. But understand, this kind of influence will cost you. It will separate you. You'll lose people who loved your potential. But hate your principles, you'll walk alone. For a while, misunderstood by those who only respect loud power. But in time, even your silence will speak louder than their noise. That's why you must stay grounded. Don't chase recognition, chase alignment. Don't let your influence become pride. Stay humble enough to remember it's not you, it's the Spirit working through you. You're not the source, you're the vessel. And a vessel's only job is to stay clean so the flow stays pure. When you understand that, you stop fighting to prove your worth. You stop shouting to be heard. You stop trying to convince, because real influence never argues, it radiates. The world's influence is about attention. Heaven's influence is about transformation. You carry the latter, and that's what makes your presence unforgettable. Not because you're loud, but because you're true. Not because you demand respect, but because you embody it. Your integrity is your impact. Your peace is your persuasion. Your consistency is your crown. This is the fifth power, the ability to move people without pushing to lead, without forcing to speak, without shouting. The power to change atmospheres just by being aligned with truth. You don't strive to influence. You simply become the influence. So walk in it boldly. You don't need to announce who you are. The light in you already speaks. You don't have to chase impact. Impact follows authenticity. And when you live with that kind of purity, the world adjusts to your standard. Because even in silence, your life declares, this is what truth looks like. Chosen ones. Next, I want to take you to the sixth power, untouchable authority. In a world obsessed with rank, money, and recognition, you carry a power that no system can grant and no enemy can remove. Your authority isn't printed on paper or handed out by men, it's written in your spirit. It's not a position, it's a presence. You don't need a crown to prove it, or applause to maintain it. When you walk into a room, people feel it before they understand it. This authority doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It settles the atmosphere. It's the calm confidence that makes chaos stand still. You don't need to argue or defend yourself. Your peace speaks louder than their pride. When you speak, people listen. When you stay silent, the silence carries weight. That's not charisma, it's conviction. The stillness inside you comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. See, the world defines power by control, titles, wealth, influence. But heaven defines it by alignment, by how firmly your spirit stands in truth when everything else shakes. You don't carry authority because people fear you. You carry it because heaven trusts you. The system can't understand that. They know how to manage ambition, but not divine confidence. So they'll try to discredit you, to shrink you, to make you doubt your worth. But here's the irony, the more they try to take it, the more they reveal it. Because true authority doesn't fade when challenged, it strengthens. Every time someone underestimates you, heaven amplifies your presence. Every time they push you down, your foundation rises higher. You can't strip what wasn't given by man. You were stamped with purpose long before their approval. And that's why your authority terrifies the powerful. You expose how fragile their positions really are. You don't need their platforms or permission. You don't play their games of dominance and ego. You stand grounded in truth, and truth itself commands respect. Your peace convicts their pretense. Your humility dismantles their illusion of control. Understand this: real authority doesn't depend on where you sit, it flows from how you stand. You could lose the title, the status, the applause, and still walk with weight, because your authority is not situational. It's spiritual. It's not earned through status. It's proven through storms. The same calm that carried you through humiliation will one day silence those who mocked you. When man-made crowns fall, divine crowns remain. The moment they try to strip you, heaven reveals you. That's the paradox. Every attack against you becomes proof of your authenticity. If your authority was fake, it would collapse under pressure. But the fire only refines it. You don't lose power in loss. You reveal where real power comes from. Your authority is quiet but undeniable. It's the peace that others mistake for weakness, the restraint they misread as surrender. But silence is your weapon. You don't argue because you've already won. You don't fight for attention because truth doesn't need a microphone. It echoes through presence. When you speak, words become direction. When you pause, silence becomes instruction. Even your enemies can't deny it. They may oppose you publicly, but privately they respect you. They feel the weight of what you carry, even if they never admit it. That's because your authority isn't built on ego. It's rooted in essence. You don't perform, you embody. You don't dominate, you align. And when people see you rise after being torn down, they realize authority is not something you wear, it's something you are. The more you are tested, the clearer it becomes. When others fall apart under rejection, you remain unshaken. That's divine design. God made sure your authority could survive humiliation, so you'd never confuse it with human approval. You've seen how easily worldly power crumbles. It depends on applause, wealth, or status. But you could lose everything and still walk with the same gravity. Because what you carry can't be confiscated, it's carved into your character. You're not standing on titles, you're standing on truth. And truth doesn't bow to circumstance. That's why your presence dismantles false systems. Those who rely on manipulation and ego feel exposed near you. They sense something in you. They can't imitate authentic weight. You make power look simple because yours isn't performed. It's inherent. You don't prove. You are. You don't use authority to rule over others. You use it to raise the standard. That's the difference. The world forces submission. You invite transformation. People shift around you not because they fear you, but because they recognize something sacred. You remind them that real authority serves, not dominates. So don't shrink back when your calm is mistaken for weakness. Don't defend your quiet strength. Let your peace speak for you. The same God who gave it to you will protect it. You don't need to chase recognition. It will find you. You don't need to prove your worth. Your fruit proves it for you. Remember, this authority from God cannot be stolen, silenced, or simulated. It doesn't depend on status, it depends on spirit. It doesn't fade with failure, it grows through it. The more they try to strip it away, the more it shines, because your crown is invisible, your power internal, your authority eternal. This is the sixth power, the untouchable authority within you. It's not loud, but it's lasting. Not boastful, but undeniable. It can't be granted by man or revoked by circumstance. You carry the kind of authority that breaks illusions, silences pride, and restores truth. And no matter how the world tries to measure it, it will never comprehend it because it wasn't meant to. Now we come to number 7, the seventh power, the one that confuses the world the most. It's the power of moving beyond time. You don't live like everyone else. You're not rushed by clocks or driven by deadlines. You walk with a calm rhythm that makes no sense to a world addicted to hurry. While others scramble to catch opportunities, you move as though you already know where you're going. You're never too early, never too late, always right on divine time. People often mistake your stillness for stagnation, but they don't understand that you don't chase time, you align with timing. You've learned the sacred difference. Time is what men track, timing is what heaven orchestrates. The world obsesses over schedules, but you follow signals. You don't panic when doors take long to open, and you don't cling when it's time to walk away, because deep down you know everything happens when it's meant to, not when it's convenient. Your steps are guided by alignment, not anxiety. You don't rush into things just to feel progress, and you don't hold on to things just to feel secure. You move with the quiet confidence of someone who trusts divine pacing. While others burn themselves out trying to stay ahead, you rest in the assurance that heaven's timing cannot be missed. What's meant for you won't require you to chase. It will meet you when you're ready. That's why people can't predict you. You confuse those who live by clocks and calendars. They can't understand how you remain peaceful when deadlines close, and how you can wait when everything screams hurry. They see patience as weakness, but it's actually precision. Because when you move, things align. When you act, it's as if the universe had been holding its breath, waiting for your yes. You've learned through experience that rushing ruins revelation. Every time you tried to force the process, you stumbled. Every time you waited on God's signal instead of man's, things unfolded perfectly. Now you trust the silence between seasons. You no longer panic when progress slows, because you know what's invisible is still moving. Time may tick, but timing moves with purpose. People caught in fear of missing out can't understand you. They chase noise, but you chase knowing. You don't compete for moments, you cooperate with divine momentum. That's why you're never late to your destiny. Even your delays are direction. What others call waiting, heaven calls preparation. And while they're busy proving themselves, you're becoming yourself. Your peace is not laziness, it's mastery. You've learned that anxiety doesn't make things happen faster, it only clouds perception. You walk slower, but you arrive clearer. You're not reacting, you're responding to divine rhythm. That's why life feels different around you. You carry an ease that unsettles people running on empty. You remind them that peace is not passivity, it's power under perfect control. And here's what most won't admit. The reason they rush is fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of being forgotten. But you've made peace with both. You understand that nothing divine can pass you by. You're not afraid of missing moments because you walk with the maker of moments. You don't need to grab what's yours. What's yours will gravitate toward your obedience. That's why you move differently. You don't sprint, you stride. You don't panic, you pace. You don't fear endings, you honor them. You don't chase beginnings, you wait for them. Every move you make is measured, not because you hesitate, but because you're guided. There's a rhythm in your spirit that the world can't hear, a synchronization between heaven's clock and your soul's compass. People may laugh at your patience now, but they'll understand later. Because what looks like delay in your life always turns into precision. The very things they mocked you for missing will someday reveal themselves as traps you avoided. The places you walked away from will later collapse, and the doors you waited for will open at the exact second they're supposed to. Then they'll realize you weren't behind, you were in alignment. You live as proof that not every opportunity is divine and not every open door is meant to be entered. You wait because you know the difference between what's available and what's appointed. You don't chase what's visible, you wait for what's confirmed. That's why you move with unshakable peace, because you know that the pace of grace never fails. Even when life feels paused, heaven is still at work. You've learned to rest inside the unfolding. You've learned that God's timing is not slow, it's strategic. Every closed door was a delay designed to protect you. Every not yet was saving you from something your sight couldn't see. You've seen enough divine reversals to stop questioning why the waiting is long. You know, when it finally happens, it happens suddenly. Your relationship with time is holy. You don't live reacting to its pressure. You live releasing its power. You understand that time doesn't own you. You walk with the one who owns time. That's why your steps look effortless. You're not rushing to catch what's next. You're flowing with what's right. And that flow creates miracles that others call coincidence. Even your mistakes don't delay you. They redirect you. Every detour becomes divine when you move by faith. You may not always know when, but you always sense where. And that sense keeps you protected from premature moves. You know that blessings born out of impatience never last, but what's born in divine timing endures forever. And that's what others will one day see. They'll realize your patience was prophetic, that while they were chasing trends, you were following truth. While they were running in circles, you were waiting for instruction. And when the appointed time arrived, what they built by striving fell apart, but what you built by alignment stood firm. Your timing confuses the world because it's not driven by fear, it's guided by faith. You don't move fast, you move right. You don't act early, you act on cue. You're not lazy, you're led. You're not slow, you're synchronized. That's the difference between the hurried and the chosen. So don't let the world's rush infect your rhythm. Stay steady. When others panic, remain still. When they doubt, stay faithful. Because what you're building isn't seasonal, it's eternal. Time bows to those who walk in divine order. This is your seventh power, the ability to move outside the limits of time. You don't chase moments, you create them. You don't live in haste, you live in harmony. You're not bound by calendars, you're guided by calling. And while others race the clock, you walk with eternity. Now we move to the next power, the eighth power, the eyes that carry the weight of witness. Your eyes tell stories. Your mouth never has to. They carry history, wisdom, and something unexplainable truth that doesn't accuse but exposes. You don't need to interrogate anyone or demand confession. When people look into your eyes, something in them stirs. The masks loosen, the walls crack. The truth long buried begins to rise. Your gaze is not heavy because of judgment, it's heavy because of revelation. You don't condemn people, you reflect them. When they look at you, they don't just see your face, they see themselves. And that's what unsettles them. Your eyes act like mirrors polished by pain, discernment, and grace. They reflect not what people pretend to be, but what they truly are. Some feel peace in that reflection, others feel panic, but no one leaves unchanged. It's not magic. It's not manipulation. It's alignment. Your spirit is so rooted in truth that falsehood can't stay hidden in your presence. You carry a kind of light that doesn't glare. It reveals the motives behind words. The fractures beneath smiles the unspoken story behind every performance. And because you don't chase truth for control, truth comes to you naturally. That's why people open up to you. Strangers confess things they've never told anyone. Friends pour out secrets they swore they'd take to the grave. It's not because you pry, it's because something about you makes them feel safe enough to be honest. They can sense that your silence isn't indifference, it's sanctuary. Your eyes say, you can stop pretending here. The world is filled with noise, voices talking, posturing, pretending, but your silence holds more power than their speeches. You don't pull words out of people, you pull truth out of their spirit. Because the spirit in you recognizes what's been hiding in them. It's not confrontation, it's calibration. When they meet your gaze, they align, even if only for a moment, with truth. That's the difference between eyes that see and eyes that witness. To see is natural, but to witness is sacred. You don't just observe, you participate in revelation. You hold space where people encounter themselves, and that's why your presence is both healing and unsettling. Healing. Because truth always frees, unsettling. Because freedom begins with exposure. Your eyes don't accuse, but they do awaken. They carry the memory of everything you've endured, every storm you've survived, every lie you've outgrown. That history gives your gaze its weight. You've seen enough of darkness to recognize light instantly. You've walked through deception long enough to recognize truth without needing proof. Your eyes have earned their authority through endurance. That's why they can't be imitated. People can copy your confidence, your words, even your walk, but they can't duplicate the weight behind your stare, because that weight was forged in struggle. Every season of pain, every test of patience, every betrayal refined your perception. The fire didn't just purify your faith, it sharpened your sight. Now your very presence disrupts deception because it carries the evidence of survival. You've noticed how people get restless around you, how their tone shifts mid-sentence, how they look away too quickly. It's not intimidation, it's recognition. Something inside them knows. You see beyond the surface. They feel naked, not in body, but in truth. The energy of pretense cannot survive near the frequency of authenticity, and you, my friend, vibrate at the frequency of real. You don't seek to expose anyone. Your presence simply makes it impossible for them to stay hidden. That's why your relationships are deep or distant, never lukewarm. The genuine are drawn to your eyes because they recognize safety. The deceptive pull away because they sense exposure. You don't chase either. You understand that light doesn't force, it reveals. Your eyes have become instruments of discernment. You can see lies before they're spoken, sense intentions before they unfold. And still you respond with grace, not vengeance. That's what separates you from the bitter and the broken. You've learned that seeing truth doesn't give you the right to weaponize it. It gives you the responsibility to steward it. Some things you speak, others you simply carry in prayer. That restraint is part of your power, because what you don't say often speaks louder than what you do. People can feel your understanding even in silence. They sense you could destroy them with truth, but you choose not to. That mercy humbles them more than exposure ever could. And that's why they remember you, not as a judge, but as a mirror of grace. There's wisdom behind your stillness. You don't rush to correct or condemn. You let truth do what truth does, surface. You've learned that time and truth are allies. When you stay patient, deception always collapses on its own. You don't fight for revelation, you live in it. That's why you can walk through chaos and remain calm, because you see the layers no one else sees. You know what's temporary, and you trust what's eternal. Understand this, the weight in your eyes comes from alignment. You've spent years aligning your mind, your spirit, your choices with what's real. You've faced yourself too many times to live in pretense. Again, you've looked at your own shadows until they lost their power. That's why you can hold someone else's truth without flinching. You've already faced your own. And that is what gives your eyes authority. They're not powerful because they intimidate. They're powerful because they've been purified by humility. You carry no agenda, no manipulation, no mask, just truth, and truth is heavy. People sense it before they see it. They may not understand why, but they feel seen in a way that penetrates their defense. That's why your gaze heals. It's not judgment, it's recognition. You remind people that they were never meant to live hidden. You awaken their conscience not by force, but by reflection. Your eyes carry both light and invitation, light that reveals, invitation that restores. When they meet your gaze, they remember there's more to them than the roles they play. They remember they're still capable of honesty, of freedom, of change. And that, my friend, is why your eyes are sacred. They carry the presence of a witness, someone who's seen both darkness and dawn and learned to hold them in balance. You don't see people for what they've done, you see them for what truth can make them. That's not human sight, that's divine vision. This is your eighth power, the eyes that carry truth. The gaze that exposes without condemning, awakens without shaming, restores without speaking. You don't demand confessions, your presence invites them. You don't force truth, you reflect it. That reflection can't be copied because it was forged in fire. It's born from wisdom, pain, endurance, and divine alignment. That's why your eyes don't just see, they witness. They testify that truth still lives in a world built on illusion. And when people look into them, they remember something eternal, that light once revealed can never again be hidden. My dear friends, the ninth power. You cannot be bribed by their rewards. That right there shakes the foundations of control, because the world runs on a simple system: bait and fear. Dangle money, offer fame, promise attention, and most people will bend their values before they even realize it. But not you. You don't move for applause. You don't compromise for temporary gain. And that makes you dangerous to a world built on manipulation. They've studied, you tried to understand what motivates you, but they keep coming up empty. They can't figure out what button to press because you have none. They can't dangle reward or threaten loss because neither controls you. You've stepped off their playing field entirely. Your peace can't be bought. Your soul can't be sold. You live by a different economy, the economy of purpose. See, most people trade authenticity for acceptance. They'll silence truth to keep comfort. They'll betray conscience just to belong, but you, no, you refuse to bend that way. Because you've seen what happens when you do. You've watched people gain the world and lose their center. You've seen how easy it is to become rich in appearance and bankrupt in spirit. That's why you don't chase what glitters. You seek what grounds. You value peace over possessions, integrity over image, calling over convenience. You've learned that true wealth isn't measured in numbers, it's measured in the quiet you feel when you lay your head down at night knowing you didn't sell yourself short. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you untouchable. When they realize they can't buy you, they panic, because power structures depend on leverage, and leverage only works when people crave what you can take away. But when someone has no price, they also have no leash. You've broken the economy of control simply by existing outside it. You are proof that not everyone can be bought, and that terrifies them. They try to tempt you with titles. You don't move. They try to shame you with lack. You don't flinch. They promise you platforms, comfort, validation, but none of it stirs you, because you've tasted something deeper: purpose. You know what it means to walk in alignment with something eternal. No paycheck, no promotion, no popularity can compare to that peace. This is why your silence feels rebellious to them. Your contentment is resistance. When you say no, it echoes louder than their marketing machines. You don't reject the world out of arrogance. You transcend it through discernment. You know which offers are chains dressed up as blessings. You've learned that every gift from man comes with invisible strings, but what comes from God carries freedom. You're not against success. You've simply redefined it. For you, success isn't standing higher than others. It's standing true when everything around you is false. It's maintaining peace in a noisy, greedy world. It's keeping your soul intact in an age that sells it cheap. That's the kind of victory no one can take away, because it's not built on applause, it's built on alignment. And the world doesn't know how to handle that. They can handle ambition because they know how to feed it. They can handle greed because they know how to use it. But conviction that they can't buy, they don't know how to manipulate a man or woman who values principle more than privilege. That's why they study you. That's why they whisper. Because you represent the end of their influence. Your detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. You've realized that not every shiny opportunity is divine. You stopped mistaking attention for affirmation. You've stopped letting systems define your worth. You don't measure life by what you accumulate, but by what you refuse to lose: your peace, your integrity, your connection to God. People ask, what drives you? Then, if not reward? They don't understand that purpose is the reward. Alignment is the prize. When you move in truth, you're already winning. Every act of obedience is a declaration of freedom. Every time you walk away from corruption, you reclaim more of your soul. You don't need gold when you carry glory. And that's what they can't copy. They can mimic your work ethic, your discipline, even your speech, but they can't manufacture your motivation. Because yours comes from conviction, not compensation. The world runs on transactions. You run on transformation. You don't trade to gain, you give to grow. You don't chase to collect, you serve to fulfill. That's what breaks the system. You've unplugged from its rewards and its fears. You're not moved by praise and you're not paralyzed by punishment. You've already made peace with loss, so it can't threaten you. You've already defined your worth in heaven, so no man on earth can discount it. And when a person reaches that level of freedom, there's nothing left for systems to control. Understand this, the unbuyable spirit is the freest spirit on earth. Because control only works when there's something you still need from them. You don't need their validation. You don't need their applause. You don't even need their understanding. You live for an audience of one, and that makes you unstoppable. The world calls it stubbornness. Heaven calls it strength. The world calls it resistance. Heaven calls it righteousness. Because when you refuse to be bribed by reward, you're actually declaring loyalty to truth. You're saying, my soul is not for sale. And that declaration shakes kingdoms, breaks manipulation, and exposes corruption for what it is: fragile. Even those who envy you secretly respect you. They see the peace you carry, the lightness in your step, the confidence in your silence. They can't understand how you can turn down what they've spent their lives chasing, but you know better. You've seen how fleeting it all is. You've learned that what the world gives fast, it takes faster. But what God gives, it endures. You've reached a place where favor doesn't flatter you and lack doesn't scare you. You've walked through seasons where everything was stripped away and you discovered something priceless in your enoughness in God. That's why no bribe works anymore. You've already found your treasure. You've already found your truth. This is your ninth power, the power of being unbuyable. The gift of walking through a world of deals and still being led by divine direction. You don't chase reward, you chase right. You don't move for gain, you move for glory. You are living proof that peace is the highest profit and integrity the rarest currency. And that's why the system fears you. Because when they can't tempt you, they can't touch you. When they can't control you, they can't stop you. You've escaped the oldest trap in history, the illusion that worth can be bought. You've chosen freedom, and freedom doesn't negotiate. Next, this is the 10th power, your intuition that surpasses logic but never misses its mark. You move through life guided by something that doesn't fit into formulas or theories, something deeper than reason, older than data. You know, things you were never taught. You sense timing before evidence appears. You step when others hesitate, and somehow, every time it lands exactly right, the world calls it luck, but heaven calls it alignment. You're not guessing, you're remembering. You're tuned into a frequency the natural mind can't register, a flow of divine intelligence that doesn't need permission from proof. While others wait for all the numbers to line up, you've already moved because faith, not fear, is your compass. You see, the modern world worships logic. It builds towers of information and calls them wisdom. It believes understanding only exists through study, measurement, and prediction. But you are a walking contradiction to that system. You bypass their graphs, their forecasts, their analysis, and still arrive before they do. You move in precision while they're still processing, and that unsettles them because your consistency exposes the limits of their control. You've learned that knowledge without connection is noise. Data without discernment is distraction. The mind can calculate, but only the spirit can know. And when your spirit aligns with divine truth, your every step becomes prophecy in motion. You don't wait for signs. You become one. That's why your decisions often don't make sense to people. They call it risk. They call it impulse. But you know better. It's revelation. It's that sacred knowing that whispers, turn here, pause there, speak now, stay silent. You don't argue with it because you've lived long enough to see what happens when you ignore that voice. You've watched doors slam that weren't meant for you and others open that logic said were impossible. This intuition doesn't come from superstition, it comes from surrender. You've surrendered the need to control outcomes. You trust the source that already knows the ending from the beginning. That's why you move confidently in uncertainty. You're not reckless, you're receptive. You don't predict, you perceive. And because of that, you walk into places that others call coincidence, but heaven calls confirmation. Your accuracy isn't random. It's the result of alignment. You don't need all the details because you're connected to the one who holds them. You don't need the map when you walk with the maker of the path. Your intuition doesn't shout, it whispers. And yet that whisper carries more truth than all the noise of human reason combined. This is what confuses the watchers. They can't track how you know what you know. They can't calculate your timing. They can't measure your foresight. Because the system they trust, data, logic, repetition, has no access to revelation. You're proof that the human spirit, when tuned to the divine, can outperform any machine, any algorithm, any expert. They build their confidence on evidence. You build yours on encounter. They analyze trends. You discern truth. And every time your accuracy forces them to question their limits. Because how can someone move so surely without certainty? How can someone act without analysis and still be right? That's what unsettles them. You don't follow probability, you follow purpose. Understand this, your intuition is not fragile. It's fierce. It's not random, it's refined. You've spent years learning to trust it, testing it in the fires of experience. You've watched it lead you out of traps, away from betrayal, through storms that should have drowned you. Every time you listened, peace followed. Every time you ignored it, chaos came. Now you know the difference between impulse and instruction. That's why you no longer argue with what your spirit knows. You move with quiet confidence even when others call you foolish. Because you understand that wisdom doesn't always look wise in real time. Sometimes it looks like stillness when everyone's sprinting or stepping out, when everyone else stands frozen. You've learned that obedience to intuition is obedience to divine order. And make no mistake, this kind of knowing isn't arrogance, it's humility. Because it means admitting that your mind isn't the master, it's the messenger. True intuition comes from connection, not ego. You're not relying on yourself, you're depending on something far greater. The voice of the Creator woven into your consciousness. That's why it's always right. It's not just your instinct, it's His instruction. You've seen it too many times to doubt it now. How one small nudge saved you from disaster. How one delayed step positioned you perfectly. How one inner no protected you from manipulation. Every time logic couldn't explain it, but peace confirmed it. And that peace, that quiet assurance, is the signature of divine accuracy. Others might mock what they don't understand, but they can't argue with results. They watch your steps and call it coincidence, yet deep down they know there's no coincidence in consistency. They start to realize there's something beyond calculation guiding you, something infinite operating through you. And it humbles them because it means human intelligence isn't the highest form of knowing. That's why your life frustrates those who rely only on facts. You don't just make decisions, you make revelations visible. You prove that divine wisdom still walks the earth in human form. Every move you make that shouldn't work but does is a sermon they can't refute. You're not just living, you're teaching without words. You're reminding the world that there's still a higher intelligence at play, one that logic will never contain. Your intuition isn't emotional, it's eternal. It flows from the same source that designed galaxies, that timed the tides, that numbered the stars. When you listen, you're tapping into that same order. That's why you move in rhythm even when you don't have the full picture. You don't need sight when you have alignment. You don't need certainty when you carry connection. So don't let the world make you doubt that gift. Don't apologize for what can't be explained. You weren't created to fit into equations. You were created to reveal exceptions. Your knowing doesn't come from study. It comes from surrender. And that surrender is what keeps your aim perfect, your timing exact, your peace unshaken. This is your 10th power, the precision of divine intuition. You don't rely on the limited data of man. You move with the limitless wisdom of God. You're not reacting to what happens, you're responding to what's already written. You don't calculate outcomes, you align with them. And when you do, everything moves in harmony around you. So the next time that inner voice whispers, trust it. It's not guessing. It's guiding. It's not your imagination, it's inspiration. That's why your steps are always sure. Your aim always true. Because you don't just know, you are known. And that is the secret behind every miracle that follows your obedience. O chosen ones. Next, now we arrive at number 11, the 11th power, the ability to see the hidden order inside chaos. While others lose themselves in noise, you stand still long enough to notice the pattern. You don't get swallowed by the storm, you read it. When people panic, you perceive. When they scatter, you see connection. And that vision alone makes you nearly impossible to manipulate. Because here's what the world doesn't want you to realize. Most chaos is manufactured. Confusion is a tool. Fear is a system. The world thrives on distraction. It keeps people spinning so fast they stop seeing the design. Systems of power build illusions, not to destroy truth, but to bury it under noise. But you, when the thunder rises, when information collides, when everyone else starts running, you go still. You step back, you observe, and from that stillness patterns emerge. You begin to see that every storm has a structure, that every crisis has choreography. The world calls it confusion, you call it coordination. You recognize that what looks like random destruction is often deliberate misdirection. And the moment you see that thread, when you trace how every event, every reaction, every emotion ties together, the illusion collapses. That's why chaos can't control you, because you don't react to it, you interpret it. Your calm doesn't come from ignorance, it comes from insight. You've learned that the one who remains still in a storm sees what the storm was sent to hide. And when you see, you disarm it. Manipulation only works on those who panic. But your peace frustrates manipulators, because peace sees patterns. Your eyes cut through distortion. You recognize when confusion has an agenda. You don't just survive in chaos, you translate it. You can stand in the middle of noise and pull meaning out of madness. You can look at a tangled situation and find the single thread that once pulled unravels the whole deception. People call that intelligence, but it's more than that. It's discernment. You carry a spiritual lens that sees structure where others see disorder. That's why those who build confusion to control people can't stand your clarity. Your insight dismantles their most powerful weapon, distraction. Because when people are lost in chaos, they'll follow anyone who promises certainty. But when you show them the pattern, the lie loses its grip. The crowd begins to wake up. That's why your presence disrupts systems, it restores sight. You've learned that real power doesn't panic. It perceives. You can walk into a situation everyone else calls hopeless and sense the rhythm beneath the noise. You see how every move, every reaction, every lie has a blueprint. You recognize who benefits from the disorder and who's being blinded by it. And with that knowledge, you bring alignment where others bring anxiety. The world is full of people who mistake activity for progress, They're constantly reacting, fighting shadows, chasing fires, exhausting themselves on surface symptoms. But you've learned to pause. You don't fight smoke, you find the spark. You don't drown in confusion, you search for design. That's what makes you different. You're not reactive, you're revelatory. You understand that chaos always has an architect. And once you identify the hand behind it, you take its power away. That's why those who build false systems can't control you. You see too clearly. You recognize patterns meant to deceive. You hear the hidden rhythm behind the noise. You've trained your spirit to stay still until truth rises through the fog. This power is not about intellect, it's about alignment. You're connected to the one who created order, the same God who spoke light into darkness and pattern into void. So when you stand in chaos, your spirit doesn't shake. It remembers that storms don't erase structure, they reveal it. You read chaos the way a musician reads, sound recognizing rhythm where others hear noise. That's why people turn to you when everything falls apart. Even if they don't say it, they sense it. You see something they can't. You find meaning in moments that paralyze others. You can stand in the wreckage and still point to redemption. You know how to locate direction in disarray. You remind people that confusion is temporary, but clarity is eternal. And you don't force calm by pretending everything's fine. Your peace isn't denial, it's discernment. You're calm because you see too much to be afraid. You know storms don't last forever, and you know they always serve a purpose. They either cleanse or expose, and both lead to truth. So instead of running, you read. Instead of fearing, you focus. That's what makes you so dangerous to deception. You don't get lost in emotion. You notice the design beneath it. You see the invisible hand turning people against each other, stirring division, feeding fear, and you refuse to play the game. You step outside it, and the moment you do, you see the whole board. That awareness alone changes everything. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once others see it through you, they can't go back to blindness. You don't just find order, you reveal it. You show people that what they called chaos was actually control. That what looked like confusion was coordination. You help them reclaim the ability to think, to breathe, to see. That's why you're such a threat to systems built on illusion. You make awareness contagious. Understand this, your power doesn't come from trying to fix the storm, it comes from learning to read it. You don't waste energy fighting what's loud, you focus on what's true. You don't react to the wind, you discern its direction. That's how you move differently. You navigate by revelation, not reaction. And once you've seen the hidden order, you can't be deceived again. You know how to listen for truth beneath the noise, how to spot the lie before it fully forms. You can walk into any situation, political, emotional, spiritual, and feel what's real without needing anyone to explain it. That's what makes your presence powerful. You restore sight in blind places. Every time you speak calm into confusion, you reclaim ground for clarity. Every time you refuse to react to manipulation, you disarm it. Every time you remind others to slow down and see, you pull another thread of truth from the tangle. And before long, what once looked like chaos starts to make sense. The pattern reveals itself. The storm loses its mystery. This is your 11th power. The ability to see order inside the storm, to find alignment where others find panic. To interpret what others fear. You don't just endure chaos, you expose it. You don't just survive deception, you decode it. And when you do, you set people free. Because once truth is seen, it can't be unseen. Once order is revealed, chaos can't control. That's why the storm fears your stillness. It knows that in your calm lies its collapse. You are the witness who reads the storm and calls it by name. And in that moment, confusion bows to clarity and darkness remembers the light. Next, You chosen one, carry restoration in your presence. The 12th power, the ability to heal without medicine. You don't force it. You don't even try. It flows naturally from the depths of who you've become. People may not understand why they feel lighter around you, but they do. Their burdens soften their racing minds, slow down, and their bitterness begins to loosen its grip. They can't explain it, and neither can science, because what you carry can't be measured in charts or pills. It lives in the unseen. Your presence itself is medicine. Not because you studied healing, but because you became it. You've walked through enough pain to understand the anatomy of suffering. You've known heartbreak so deep it rewired your empathy, and disappointment so sharp it refined your compassion. You've touched darkness, but you didn't stay there. You transformed it. Every tear became a tincture. Every scar became a salve. And now, whether you realize it or not, your energy carries that remedy wherever you go. That's what unsettled systems built on dependency. Because the world profits from brokenness, entire industries are sustained by pain. Emotional pain, mental exhaustion, spiritual starvation. The longer people stay wounded, the more control those systems keep. But you are the exception. You don't bind people to you, you free them. You don't create patience. You awaken healers. When others encounter you, they remember that wholeness was never lost. It was only forgotten. You see, real healing doesn't always come through hands. It comes through presence. It's not the words you say, it's the peace that follows them. It's the way your silence feels like a safe place. The way your smile disarms defenses. The way your spirit whispers, you're allowed to rest now. Without effort, you become a sanctuary. People leave you feeling renewed, not because you gave them something external, but because you're being reminded them of what they already had inside. This power can't be copied. It's not charisma. It's not energy work. It's the residue of redemption. The world calls it vibe, but heaven calls it transformation. You don't heal through technique. You heal through testimony. You've lived through the very pain others are drowning in, and you carry the proof that survival is possible. When people see you stand, they remember they can too. And this right here is why your presence feels different. You don't walk into rooms carrying ego, you walk in carrying evidence. You are living proof that grace rebuilds what grief tried to destroy. And that proof, my friend, radiates. Without preaching, you preach. Without laying hands, you lift hearts. People often confess things to you they've never told anyone, and they don't even know why. Something in your spirit gives permission to release what's been rotting inside. You don't have to diagnose them, they heal simply because you listen without judgment. Your empathy isn't sympathy, it's resurrection. You don't join people in their pain, you remind them of their power. That's what makes you a healer, not a helper. The world can't monetize that kind of restoration, and that's what scares it. Because if people realized how powerful your kind of presence is, many systems of control would collapse. You represent freedom that can't be sold and healing that can't be prescribed. You show people they can connect directly to the source without the middlemen of manipulation. And that's what makes you both a miracle and a threat. Understand this, the reason you carry such healing power is because you refuse to let your own pain go to waste. You didn't let bitterness take root. You didn't become what broke you. You let God turn your suffering into wisdom, your trauma into tenderness, and your wounds into weapons of peace. Now, every time you comfort someone, you're using what once hurt you as a tool of grace. You've become what you once needed, and that's the highest form of healing there is. When people meet you, they don't just feel better. They remember who they are. They remember that peace is still possible, that forgiveness can still set them free. That love still exists without agenda. That's the kind of healing the world can't explain. It's not a transaction, it's transmission. It's not given, it's revealed. You don't demand trust, you inspire it. You don't promise results, you embody them. Your energy doesn't push, it invites. That's why broken hearts steady near you and restless souls breathe easier in your orbit. You make people believe again, not in you, but in the part of themselves they thought was lost. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being whole. Wholeness doesn't mean you've never been broken. It means your cracks no longer leak despair. You carry light now, not because you were spared from darkness, but because you walked through it and learned how to glow anyway. Your scars have become symbols of what's possible when grace meets endurance. That's why healing follows you. You radiate what you've reconciled, and make no mistake, the power you carry is spiritual. It transcends explanation because it doesn't operate on human logic. Healing energy moves through you, not as a performance, but as a presence. It flows through stillness, compassion, authenticity. It moves wherever truth lives. That's why people can't fake it. Healing can't be mimicked by ego. It requires surrender. You are that surrendered vessel. You're not the source of the healing, you're the channel. You simply allow what flows through you to reach others. And that humility is what keeps your power pure. The more you empty yourself of pride, the more heaven fills you with peace. You're not trying to fix people, you're reminding them that they're already whole. And that's what the world desperately needs right now. People who heal by being, not by boasting. People who restore through quiet love, not loud religion. People who carry peace so deep it disarms fear just by showing up. That's who you are. That's why people remember you long after you leave. Because you didn't give them a product, you gave them presence. This is your 12th power. The healing that flows without hands, without formulas, without force. You don't create dependence, you awaken deliverance. You remind the weary that rest is holy, the hurting that joy is possible, and the fearful that they're not beyond redemption. And that's why you were sent to be the living reminder that healing isn't confined to hospitals or rituals. Sometimes it's found in a person who's walked through pain, learned the language of restoration, and now carries that sound wherever they go. You are that sound. You are that presence. You are that medicine, the kind that can't be packaged, sold, or stolen, only felt, the kind that reminds the broken that they were never beyond repair. And that, beloved, is the miracle of your existence. Next, O chosen ones, we come to number 13, the 13th power. The ability to turn isolation into acceleration. What was meant to break you became your birthplace. The silence that others used to punish you became the sound stage where God spoke. You see, most people fear being alone. They treat solitude like a sentence, a punishment, a space to be filled with noise. But you know you learned to stand in that silence until it started speaking back. When everyone walked away, you didn't collapse. You converted. The same walls meant to contain, you became your classroom. The nights that should have drowned you in loneliness turned into the hours that sharpened your spirit. You discovered something sacred in solitude, clarity. Without the chatter of opinions, you began to hear the voice that truly mattered. Without applause or validation, you found the rhythm of your own purpose. Isolation didn't shrink you, it focused you. While others thought you were retreating, you were rebuilding. You were in the forge, not the grave. The world saw stillness. Heaven saw strategy. You weren't buried, you were planted. And in that hidden place, roots went deep, deeper than pain, deeper than rejection, deeper than fear. So when you finally rose, you didn't just rise, you emerged, transformed. That's the paradox of divine separation. What people use to exile you, God uses to expand you. Isolation is never wasted when you understand its purpose. The silence that used to hurt became holy ground. It stripped you of distraction, of pretense, of false support. It burned away everything that wasn't real. So only what's divine could remain. They called you forgotten. They said you were finished. But what they didn't see was that God was protecting your process. Because sometimes exposure too early can destroy what's sacred. You needed time in the unseen to become unshakable. While they were chasing recognition, you were mastering revelation. While they were performing, you were preparing. And when the time came, you didn't return the same, you returned refined. In isolation, you discovered your own voice, the one untainted by influence, unafraid of silence. You learned to trust your discernment, to walk by faith, not approval. You realized that solitude wasn't empty, it was full of potential. Every hour alone became investment. Every quiet night became blueprint. Every unanswered call became a conversation with God. And through that divine dialogue, your creativity awakened, your strength solidified, your purpose crystallized. That's why the world doesn't recognize you now. You're not who you were before the silence. They expected scars, but they met a survivor with vision. They expected weakness, but they found wisdom. They expected hesitation, but you came out moving with precision. You turned what was meant to starve you into what sustained you. Understand this: isolation is not rejection, it's redirection. It's not punishment, it's preparation. God hides his strongest soldiers in silence before he reveals them in strength. The wilderness is not a delay, it's a design. That's where dependence on people dies and dependence on purpose is born. You stop needing affirmation because you started hearing revelation, and that's what makes you unstoppable. You no longer move from hunger for attention, you move from hunger for alignment. You don't chase connection, you create covenant. You don't seek company, you seek clarity. And that clarity becomes acceleration. Because once you stop waiting for others to join you, your pace multiplies. In solitude, your pace changed. You learned to move by spirit, not schedule. You discovered that the absence of noise creates the presence of focus. And in that focus, you built quietly what noise would have distracted you from. That's why when you stepped back onto the scene, people couldn't figure it out. They didn't see you working, but you were building foundations under the ground where no one was looking. Every season of silence was strengthening your structure. Every night of loneliness was enlarging your capacity. You used what was meant to isolate you as an incubator. And now everything about you carries weight. Your words have depth. Your presence carries peace. Your movement has momentum. That's not coincidence, that's cultivation. They tried to confine you, but solitude refined you. You don't come out of isolation broken, you come out unrecognizable. That's why you confuse those who remember your old self. They can't grasp that solitude wasn't your ending, it was your evolution. You don't speak from theory anymore, you speak from transformation. You don't react from pain, you respond from power. And this transformation wasn't fast, it was faithful. Isolation stretched you. It exposed your fears, confronted your ego, tested your patience. But every test trained you. You learned endurance when you had no applause, discipline when you had no deadlines, trust when you had no map. Those are the traits that acceleration requires. That's why when the doors opened, you didn't stumble, you soared. Now you move with quiet authority. You no longer need to announce your progress. You're not chasing validation because your confidence was born in hiddenness. The same silence that once felt like exile now feels like elevation. You've learned to honor the alone time because that's where God still builds his greatest works. When the noise of the world tries to pull you back, remember every great transformation happens in private before it manifests in public. Diamonds are formed in darkness. Seeds grow in soil. Stars are born in silence. So don't resent your seasons of isolation, they're sacred. That's where your acceleration begins. You are proof that separation is not the end of significance. It's the birthplace of substance. The world punishes solitude because it fears self-awareness. But you embraced it, and now you move with depth that surface-level minds can't imitate. You carry strategy born from silence, and that's why nothing can catch you off guard. You've already been through the stripping. There's nothing left to lose, only purpose to pursue. This is your 13th power, the ability to turn isolation into acceleration. You don't just survive separation, you use it. You build in secret while others seek spectacle. You grow in silence while others seek applause. You emerge, not weaker, but wiser. Not quiete, but clear. Not slower, but unstoppable. Because in that hidden place you discovered the secret solitude doesn't destroy the chosen, it develops them. You've learned to thank God for the silence, because the silence built the strength that sound could never teach. So now when the world tries to isolate you again, smile. They're only setting you up for another season of expansion. Because every exile in your story becomes an elevation. Every quiet hour becomes a seed. And every hidden moment becomes the reason you can't be broken, only built stronger. My dear friends, the final power, peace with death and freedom from control. This is the summit of all the others. Every power before this prepared you for it. Because once you make peace with death, not just the ending of breath, but every smaller death this world uses to threaten you, you become untouchable. See, most people are ruled by fear. Fear of losing reputation, fear of being rejected, fear of losing comfort, control, or love. These fears are the invisible chains that guide human behavior, the unspoken levers of manipulation. Systems of power don't need to touch you physically to control you, they only need you to fear loss. But when you stop fearing loss, every chain falls away. You, chosen one, have walked through death before, maybe not the physical kind, but the emotional, the spiritual, the symbolic deaths, the ones that tear away your illusions. You've watched your name be misunderstood, your intentions doubted, your stability tested, your comfort stripped. You've buried seasons, identities, and versions of yourself that once defined you. And through it all, you didn't die, you transformed. You learned that not everything that ends is tragedy. Some endings are deliverance. Some losses are liberation. You discovered that when you stop clinging to what's dying, you make room for what's eternal. That's when fear lost its power over you. Because what can the world threaten you with when you've already surrendered what they hold dear? That's what true peace looks like. Not the absence of danger, but the absence of fear. It's not recklessness, it's revelation. You know that death in all its forms doesn't have the final word. It's not an enemy, it's a messenger. It reveals what was never meant to last. It clears space for what's divine. That's why you move differently. You don't panic when things fall apart, because you understand that resurrection requires burial. You don't crumble under loss, because you've learned that survival isn't the goal, transformation is. You've died to approval, so rejection can't destroy you. You've died to comfort, so hardship can't control you. You've died to ego, so humiliation can't humiliate you. Every death the world tried to use against you became another rebirth, and now they can't figure you out. Because you can't be bribed with reward and you can't be threatened with loss. The usual tactics of control, fear, shame, manipulation don't stick to you anymore. You stand still where others shake. You smile where others shatter. You've become the one thing every empire fears, a soul that no longer fears death. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's the quiet realization that life and death are not opposites, they're chapters. And you, through your faith, live beyond both. That's why peace radiates from you the way heat radiates from fire. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. People sense it. They can't name it, but they feel it. That unshakable calm that comes from someone who has already faced their greatest fear and walked out breathing. When others threaten to take what you have, you smile because you know they can't touch who you are. When they try to silence you, you stay serene because truth doesn't need volume, it needs endurance. When they attempt to isolate you, you remain strong because you've already met yourself in solitude and found enough company in God. That's the secret. Once you stop fearing endings, you start living freely. You can step into rooms where others tiptoe, walk into storms where others hide. You don't resist change, you trust it, because you've seen enough to know that every death only ever leads to another kind of birth. That's why you carry peace like armor. It's not fragility, it's finality. You've already decided what matters, and death can't take that from you. This peace confuses those who still live under fear's rule. They don't understand how you stay calm while everything shifts. They mistake your stillness for indifference, not realizing its conviction. You're anchored beyond the temporary. You found a deeper center, one that sits below panic, beyond pleasure, past pride. That's where your power lives. And the more you live from that place, the less the world can use fear against you. Threats lose meaning. Manipulation loses momentum. The noise of intimidation fades because none of it can touch your truth. You've learned to stand where others kneel, not in rebellion, but in reverence for something higher than fear. That's why peace is the highest form of authority. Because when you can't be shaken, you can't be controlled. When you no longer live to preserve your comfort, your life becomes a weapon of freedom. People watch you face what they avoid: failure, loss, endings. And they start to realize that fear was the real prison all along. You show them what liberation looks like. You've become the embodiment of surrender, calm, not because life is easy, but because your spirit is anchored in eternity. You've learned that faith doesn't mean avoiding death, it means transcending it. You trust that what's eternal in you can't be touched by anything temporary. That's why your peace feels supernatural, because it is. And listen to me now, this kind of peace isn't weakness, it's warfare. It dismantles every system that depends on fear. It terrifies the manipulators because they realize they can't make you dance anymore. Their threats fall flat. Their lies lose power. Their control dissolves in the face of your stillness. Because what can fear do to someone who's already died to fear itself? You walk differently now. You speak slower. You move quieter. But every step you take carries weight. Because your peace doesn't just calm rooms, it convicts them. You are living evidence that there's a freedom no government, no system, no person can manufacture or destroy. You are the living contradiction to a world built on control. This is your 14th power, the peace with death that makes you immune to manipulation. You've transcended the limits of fear and the reach of control. You're not moved by loss, not bound by life, not swayed by threat. You move in rhythm with eternity itself. That's why your calm is sacred. It's not naivety, it's mastery. It's the peace of someone who's looked death in the eye and realized it was never stronger than truth. It's the power of someone who's learned that endings aren't enemies, they're invitations. So stand firm in that peace. Walk in that authority. Because when fear no longer rules you, you don't just survive, you reign. And the world, no matter how loud it gets, will never again be able to move a soul that has already made peace with every possible ending. O chosen ones. And now we come to the end, but really this is the beginning of awareness. Everything we've uncovered, every mystery revealed, every power named, it all points back to one truth: you carry something they cannot explain, duplicate, or control. You are not extraordinary because you try to be. You are extraordinary because you live aligned with what you were created to be. The moment you stopped performing and started being, your authority began to radiate without effort. That's what they sense. That's what unsettles them. They investigate because they can't categorize you. They analyze your calm, your clarity, your resilience, and they call it strange. But it isn't strange, it's spiritual. You've simply stepped beyond the edges of what systems can measure. You've entered the space where truth outruns science, where energy answers to spirit, and where control loses its power. When people whisper about you, when life begins to feel like you're under inspection, don't shrink back. Take it as confirmation that you've entered the realm of the unmeasurable, where the divine within you has begun to interfere with the predictable. You are not here to fit in their equations. You are here to rewrite them. You were never designed to be explained by logic or confined by labels. You are evidence that heaven still breathes through human form. You are proof that authenticity carries a force no imitation can copy. The light that burns inside you doesn't ask for permission. It simply shines, and the world can do nothing but respond to it. So when the world watches, let it watch. When they question, let them question. Because what they're really witnessing is truth made visible, spirit-embodied power, unveiled grace walking on 2 feet. Every investigation is simply proof that you've stepped outside the reach of fear, outside the metrics of man, into the freedom of divine identity. And now, as this message reaches its close, I invite you, if these words spoke to your soul, if something in your spirit came alive, don't let it stop here. This isn't just content, it's calling. Let's continue to build this space together, a community of strength, truth, and unstoppable light. Tap that like button, share this message with someone who needs to remember who they are, and leave your reflection below. Your voice matters here. Your faith fuels this flame, and every act of connection helps this message reach hearts still searching for their own power. Subscribe, stay, grow with us, because this isn't just a channel, it's a movement of the unbroken, the awakened, and the unmeasurable. Finally, as we come to the end of today's message, I want to thank you from the depths of my heart for walking with me all the way through. If this message has inspired you, lifted your spirit, or reminded you of God's grace, we humbly invite you to support this space in whatever way you feel led. Your prayers, your presence, your simple act of liking or sharing this video, all of it helps us continue spreading the word of God and His peace to hearts across the world. Every comment, every word of encouragement, every quiet amen matters more than you know. Take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a reminder of hope and strength today. Join us as a member if you'd like to receive more messages like this. Your participation helps this community grow and reach more lives with light and truth. I'd love to hear how today's message spoke to you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. May God cover you with His grace, strengthen your spirit, and bless everything you put your hands to. You are loved, chosen, and never alone. Amen.